A hearing in Fort Worth not long ago, one man said that his company does recycling of water and that they claim that they can capture 90% of the hazardous chemicals out of the water. Some of the people that work in the industry claim that we're fear-mongering and that we're just emotional. All we are is people that are saying, we know that drilling is here. All we're asking is that the people that are doing the drilling implement safety and health standards. Those are things that are required of many industries. And if these are to be good corporate citizens, they should be implementing best practices, and they should build that in to their regular cost of doing business. It shouldn't be on the taxpayers to pay for vapor recovery units or the cost of adding odor. That should be in their cost of doing business. It's not going to hurt them. If I have to pay more for gas to my house, I would be willing to pay more any day if I could be assured that they were going to meet safety and health standards. We desperately need you. The TCEQ is never going to enforce anything in the state of Texas. They are owned in entirety by the oil and gas industry. We desperately need you. We want you. We want to support your work. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm Dan O'Leary, and I also would like to thank you for taking your time to listen to us. I am a resident of West Fort Worth. I'm the Vice President of the Tejas Trails Neighborhood Association, and we have active drilling around, surrounding us from Devon, and we've signed leases with Titan Corporation to exploit the gas, and I was on the review team to review the leases and notice the very first thing, I'm also an engineer, I want to say that too, and subjected the lease to what I call an engineering review. What I noted from a non-legal standpoint is the lease was all about protecting their rights as drillers and producers and nothing for the property owners and residents' rights. That was my introduction to oil and gas here. I'm formerly from Louisiana, and it really saddened me to see what's been playing out over there. I was on an offshore supply boat earlier in my career, and I actually pulled the general alarm. Getting off the boat, it didn't work. The company was out supplying materials and taking back materials from gas rigs out in the Gulf. I almost got washed overboard during a storm, and several people lost their lives about a quarter of a mile away from the boat where I was. They sent the boat out, had 2 engines on it. One engine had failed, the other engine had metal filings in the oil sump. The front anchor winch motor had failed, yet the company sent the boat out to service the rig in the Gulf. Okay? This is not somebody else's story, this is my story. This happened. Basically, I see in my lifetime a careless disregard for human life. It was not worth the $35 a day I was being paid. And I quit, and I hitched a ride on a 18-wheeler back to Louisiana from Texas. That's the first and last time I ever hitched a ride with Thunder Rock. And that changed my viewpoint drastically. I have no issue with people recovering the value of the material underneath the ground in in Texas or any place else. I do want it done responsibly. I have two things here. I really didn't even come to say anything. I just wrote these things down and listening to people. I have sent you an email. You're going to probably see it in your inbound with a list of things. But one of the things I noticed was there was a lot of discussion about regulations, and I understand that's what you're about. But the regulations won't be effective unless there's comprehensive third-party monitoring, continuously performed, and aggressive enforcement, as well as stiff penalties for non-compliance. These people do not understand anything but the money. So, speak the language. The other thing is that there's a issue with the drilling fluids, the frac fluids, and the particulate matter coming out. I'm an asthma sufferer. I'm an allergy sufferer. It has degraded my quality of life. I've noticed it in my daughter as well. I'd like to say that if the frac fluids are so secretive, why don't we chemically tag them and find out who's really doing this leaking? Trace it back to the source. I don't see why that's not possible. Usually what you'll hear is, yeah, something leaked, and yeah, the gas line, there's gas in the water, but it wasn't us. Let's find out who it is. Let's apply some science to it. And that's all I have to say. I want to make this short. Thank you. You can have my scrawl notes, but I don't think you're reading it. All right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, now on to, again, let me just ask, is there anybody else that has not spoken that wanted to speak tonight? Okay, then we're going to go circle back with four folks that were in this afternoon that wanted to spend a little bit more time, and Jay Oligard and Bill Ellis, please.
Okay, while the presentation is loading, I just wanted to say that the last speaker was a perfect segue into my talk, which is about measurement techniques for oil and gas emissions. I think the public desperately needs this type of information. So I'm glad I managed to get to this at the end to share this information.
And Jay, actually, not to not torture you again with this, but for the last four, we're going to try to hold you to 5 minutes.
I agree with you. I will try to do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so let me go to the first slide. We've seen studies conducted by different MPs, and there's a new one that we conducted by the city of Fort Worth. But it seems to me that they all use conventional monitoring methods which suffer from very serious shortcomings that prevent the public from actually getting the information that they want. Okay, first of all, canister sampling is too sporadic. It cannot measure sticky compounds like formaldehyde. I talked about the shortcomings of the NPH cartridges this morning in measuring aldehydes, including the fact that they suffer from chemical interferences. Then some people say that you should do grab sampling of an engine exhaust plume. Well, but that ignores the variations within the plume itself. You can't completely sample the plume, in that particular way. And if you put an AutoGC station that does continuous monitoring, that doesn't account for plume dilution. And of course, it's been very helpful to have infrared cameras, but they can't quantify emissions. And if they try to, they must try to deconvolute VOC infrared spectra that are completely buried by carbon dioxide and water vapor infrared lines. Okay. So we have tried ourselves some very revolutionary techniques that really do the job, I think, that these other techniques don't. We proved this in the field in the SHARP campaign last year in Houston, which I talked about this morning. For instance, we brought UCLA in to deploy this fancy new technique called the Imaging Differential Optical Absorption Spectrometer, or the imaging DOAS, or the IDOAS. And what this does is basically uses the sun's light source to literally count molecules coming from a combustion source. You can do this for formaldehyde, you can do this for SO2, you can do this for NO2. So those are three very important molecules for air quality. Next slide. So here's a picture of the instrument standing. Now this is outside the fence line. We didn't need any permission to do this from the companies that we looked at. Okay, and here we see the instrument on the lower left-hand corner aimed at an acid gas flare in Texas City, and literally counting the molecules of formaldehyde and SO2 coming out of the flare. Okay, an acid gas flare. Next. Okay, we also brought in Aerodyne Research. Okay, they have a mobile laboratory that's packed with real-time instrument, 1 second time resolution. Okay, and so they were able to circle around again outside the fence line, no permission required. You know, we're sort of fingerprinting and wiretapping fingerprinting these emissions, and you can do this for a whole range of DOCs, speciated DOCs, including DTEX, as well as formaldehyde. Okay. And if you know the wind speed and direction which they measure, and you add a mathematical technique called the adjoint method to do inverse modeling, which is basically what the gentleman wanted, to essentially tag molecules, to measure their ambient concentration, and to backtrack with a model, okay, where the stuff comes from. You can, next, here's an example of the technique being deployed in Texas City. Okay, where the van is driving around outside the fence line and see very large concentrations of benzene approaching 40 parts per billion. They were able to tag, the source, to a storage tank farm there, denoted by the star, that's emitting at the rate of 7.3 kilograms per hour. Okay, so we can do this. This is Star Wars. Well, maybe it is Star Wars, but it's today's Star Wars. Okay, we can do this now, and my feeling is that there's a lot of fear, certainly. Maybe some people don't necessarily like the information that these techniques might divulge. There's lack of familiarity, so people tend to stick to old techniques that they're comfortable with because they have the good housekeeping seal of approval, even if they can't tell them the answers that they want. And there's also a certain amount of inertia. Okay, so I think that if we overcome these, we find that we can provide the answers that people really want, and we can do it at a reasonable cost. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis.
Hi. Glad to be back. And what I didn't get to talk about this morning, let me go back. What I did talk about was credibility. And to me, this is the most important thing. This has nothing to do with natural gas or any other part of it, except that you're involved with it. But I want to get on the other side. I'm very different than every speaker you've heard tonight. I'm more concerned about the government and the government getting involved. And again, this goes back to you guys. This is you guys getting involved. And how honest is this going to be? Bruce mentioned that there were going to be, what was it exactly, promise to do the right thing for Bruce. This is the government. The state government, it should be another thing. This is a double negative, but I'm not saying there is no problem. I agree, there is a problem. But now we're more than doubling that problem by making the government be part of it. Because the government always creates more of a problem than it was originally, than was originally there in the first place. Now everybody here tonight was talking about how you guys are going to save this poor state.